Hi, I'm Cole Wilson, and I'm a screen actor. Today on the channel, Diary of a Screen Actor, I'll be joined by Stef Tovar, an actor, coach, and friend of mine who I met at a workshop earlier this year in 2021. Stef Tovar is known for Chicago Med, Widows, The Shy, and most recently, The 4400. But something that was really interesting that came out of the pandemic was the resurgence of the film Contagion from 2011, in which he plays Dr. Arrington in a very crucial moment in the film. So if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. It's really good. So Stef will be coming on. We will do Q&A about his book, which is called The Map. I got my signed copy when I went to the book launch back in October in Chicago. Yeah, he's great. So love to introduce him. All right, here we are. I have Mr. Stef Tovar with us today. Thank you so much for joining me, Stef.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So Stef just recently came out with a phenomenal book on acting, which was the premise for getting him to speak with me today. But before we dig into that, can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name's Stef.
Who are you?
My name's Stef Tovar. I use he, him pronouns. I live in Chicago, Illinois, and I'm an actor and an on-camera acting teacher.
And Stef and I met when he came to do a workshop at the studio where I train. And that was prior to the book coming out. So I believe you'll have to tell me, Stef, is the technique that we worked on that weekend the same that you teach in your Zoom classes now?
Yes, it's the same that's in the book and the same I teach an on-camera intensive over Zoom. I have another one coming up this January. You can find it on my website, which is just steftovar.com. But it's the same technique. I developed it around 2018 was when I finally started to figure it out. I've been coaching actors since 2013, but didn't really get good at it until 2018. It took me some time. When I sort of honed the idea that it's not acting that I was teaching, but sort of a new language, the language of this box and how to work within its rules and get your acting audition across.
Excellent. Well, you've been very helpful for me thus far since I've met you. So thank you very much.
My pleasure. You're doing great work.
Oh, with your instruction. So before we talk about the book, I'd like to learn a little bit more about you and how you came to acting and your trajectory thus far.
Sure. Like most of us, I discovered it, in school and in high school, really. I was acting before then, probably middle school, 7th and 8th grade. Went to high school where I had this amazing drama teacher who, did shows like Candide and Peer Gynt and Hair, the musical, and was very inspirational and sort of, lighting my fire and making me interested in the craft of acting. And through his guidance, I just, discovered, I can go to school for this. So I pursued it in school at Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio. And then after college, I came back to Chicago and I lived and worked here for 10 years. And then I moved to LA for 6 years. I loved it out there. And then after my son was born in 2006, we decided to come back and raise him in the Midwest. And I sort of bounced back and forth between Chicago and LA now.
Very nice. Very nice. I was wondering if there were any hobbies or experiences that have stood out to you. Maybe something that contributed to a special skill, something maybe you started in childhood or in high school or even as an adult that has contributed to your acting career.
That's a great question. I know it's more fun to say something cool like, I'm a surfer, or I did ride my bike across the country for my 50th birthday in 2020.
That's
I rode my bicycle from Chicago to LA along Route 66, which might be another book someday. But when I think of experiences that sort of shaped me as an actor or things that I can pull from, it's really not the fun stuff. It's
hmm,
really sort of the losses in your life, or the suffering, or the things that you have to work through, that give you a good well of um, emotion and things to touch upon. And also being a father, I would say, that's sort of changed my life, in general, but definitely as an actor. Once I became a dad, you tap into a whole new well of things that you just didn't know that you could do before, when it was just you. So I'd say probably being a dad, and then, the losses that I've encountered within my life. Those are the things that make us richer as humans. And, as I say in the book, casting doesn't want actors generally, they want humans. So these things that have made me the human I am today are the things that make me a good actor, I'd say.
that's fascinating, isn't it? Just the perspective shifts that we can assume will occur throughout our
Mhm.
career. I mean, you probably, I mean, you know way more actors than I do and way more industry people than I do, but I'm sure you've known a number of people who have also ditched for various reasons and said, well, this isn't actually for me. Maybe they started quite young and decided to go pursue something else, different career. Um, but you get actors who start a little bit later and who have already done things and have had perspective shifts. Maybe they have more to draw from initially. But I figure I think that's a good perspective to have, knowing that our growth trajectory as actors will just be, what's the word I'm looking for? It's just going to be exponential, right?
Yeah.
We're just going to
Yeah.
add and add and add. Like things won't be taken away at this point because we're drawing upon the well of human emotion and experience. And
Yeah.
you mentioned, I was going to bring this up later, but I flagged my favorite quote in the book, and it's related to what you just said. So I'm just
Oh
going
God. Okay.
to, one of my favorite things in the section about taking your time, I believe that's, yes, in auditioning.
I
It,
say that a lot.
it says, casting does not want to see an actor. They want to see a human. They want to see the person perfect for the role. So just be it. They do not want to watch how you get there. So really all of our losses and our experiences and our hardships and our successes and celebrations, all of those things go into the prep. And then when we show up in that moment, we just have to be what they're looking for, right?
Yeah, you just have to start thinking like whatever character you're portraying, and not, Steph the actor in the room, but start thinking like the character that you're reading for, and just be them. They don't want to see how you get there. They don't want to see you crack your neck and do like acting exercises. They don't have time for that, especially when it comes to TV and film. You sometimes get a little bit of a pass when you're auditioning for theater, because directors want to make sure that, they can spend 4 weeks with you creating the world of a play. But when it comes to on camera, lots of times, like, your self-tape is how you get cast. They don't meet you, they don't read your resume, they don't look at your reel. So I think it's more important than ever to just learn how to be the character you're auditioning for, and not act it.
It's interesting because it seems like it's somewhat of a paradox. You need all these things to get in the room, but then maybe they just want to see you to begin with. It's almost like you need these things to break down the gate, and yet when you get there you still just have to be raw, good old you in that scenario, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes, especially for co-star roles, smaller roles for TV and film, they'll, you won't meet a director until you walk on set and they introduce themselves.
Right.
You'll be cast strictly off of your audition. Now, when you're auditioning for a larger guest star, series regular role, or a lead in a film, yeah, they're going to look you up on IMDb. They're going to, try to find out as much information about you as possible to see, okay, can they carry this TV show? Can they carry this film? But on the co-star stuff, they will not even look. They'll be like, they'll watch your audition and go, great, that's them.
Well, and that's another perspective thing, right? To consider ourselves as props. I was revisiting the end of the book today, the bit that actually talks about what it's like when you get booked, which, by the way, is really rare to find. I mean, I'm sure you know that there are so many acting resources out there, Meisner and Stanislavski and Adler and all these greats, right? Which maybe are primarily theater, but somewhat translatable to the screen as well.
Oh, both for sure,
Um,
yeah.
they sure don't tell you what it's like when you get on set and what to expect and how unobtrusive to be and how, you know, I mean, Jenna Fisher in her book speaks about um, joking around and starting conversation with the folks who are there every day doing their job
Yeah.
every single day, the series regulars. And while they were all kind to her, it was somewhat awkward because that's not what we do. And it's this building, right? Of, and I just want to clarify terms. You said co-star roles. How would you define a co-star just for our listeners?
Yeah, co-star is a role that's maybe a day player. They show up for maybe a couple of days of shooting. They've got maybe, one or two scenes, but they don't carry the episode, right? A guest star is a little bit more chunkier of a role. And a lot of it when it comes to TV and film has to do with how you're billed, right? So there's top of show guest stars. So when the credits are rolling at the top, you will see your name, right? If you don't see your name at the top, then you're a co-star and you get put in the back with the rest of the, here's the rest of the cast really quick. You got to try to catch it. So generally though, co-stars are going to be a little bit smaller of role than a guest star. But that said, I just shot an episode of 4400, this new TV show that aired on the CW network. The role that I had on that show was a chunky role and bigger than this role that I shot for Chicago Med back in 2020. And I was a guest star on Chicago Med, but I was a co-star on 4400. So,
It's
guest
all
star, co-star, yeah.
It's different every time. And you talk about how it's different in the room, it's different on the set. I'll throw one out there, but I'm going to ask you as well. What skills you think are just absolutely necessary for successful actors? And the one I'm going to throw out initially is adaptability. I would imagine being able to just roll with the punches. They say yes, you say yes. They say no, you say okay. What am I changing? Right?
Yeah.
To just go for it.
I think adaptability is great.
And it's like the yes and in improv, right? You just go with exactly what they want. What else would you say?
I mean, I think improv is a great skill to have because unlike theater, you could be doing a scene where you're in it and, you're feeling all the stuff and it's all there. And then you hear the director, okay, wait, hold, Steph, go back, take it from this line. And I want you to just lift your hand a little higher. Okay. And action. And you're like, I was like having my moment there. Okay, I guess we're going back. You have to be able to go with the flow. You have to be able to have a sense of improv. And you have to understand that movies are made, right? Plays are performed and movies are made, and you are just a piece of the puzzle, an important piece, but you're just one piece. And so you have to have that knowledge when you get on set. It's not all about you. And you have to be a team player and you have to be ready to go. And you don't want people waiting on you. I asked my friend Marco Fargnoli, who's a director in LA. He worked on the Mindy Project, is one of his many credits. And I sent him that chapter of the book that's what to expect when you get on set. And I said, what do you think? You're a director. Is there anything you want to add to this? And he said, you know what? The number one thing that I see with young actors, I can't believe I'm saying this, but they're late and they don't know their lines. And I was like, all right. And I put it in the book. And in the book, I literally say, I shouldn't even have to put this in this book, but never be late, ever. There's never an excuse for you being late. You got to be early and you got to show up prepared. You just have to. So yeah, a sense of improv, but also just being punctual, being prepared, Those are things that are, important in any industry, but super important in TV and film where things move very quickly.
Yeah, and I think the going back to the perspective again, that word's going to come up 15 times or more throughout our conversation, just realizing what our role is, to be a pawn, to be a puzzle piece, to be if you're a co-star, the person moving the story along, presenting important information to the main character. You don't have an arc. Or, even I would imagine, even when you are a series regular, yes, you're shouldering much greater responsibility, but you're still a piece. And when you say that movies are made, I mean, you read and you hear, and we're exposed to the idea that editing is really where the magic happens, right?
Yeah. I mean,
it's so hard to remember that as an actor.
Yeah, well, that's the big switch that actors have to remember. Actors from theater, the pace of TV and film is dictated by the editor. It's not dictated by the director. It's not dictated by the writer or the actor. The editor is the one that puts it all together and creates the pace of the storytelling. So you have to slow things down and make sure that you're giving an editor enough to work with where they can cut away and do the things they need to do. If you just blow through your scenes and you don't take any beats or any moments, or you're not there for your other actor when they're getting their coverage, then you're giving an editor nothing to work with. And as actors, we never see the editor, right? So giving over that power of the storytelling to that person that we never see is a real switch that we have to make as theater actors transitioning to TV and film.
Right, absolutely. Well, and so what I'm hearing too is that having a basic understanding, or acquiring in some capacity, be it through background work or who knows, independent stuff, whatever it be, acquiring some working knowledge of what a set is like, how it works, the different signals that are given on set, and all of the equipment, my goodness gracious, how they set up the picture, the sound, everything. Just having that visual allows you to prepare in a different way, I think.
Yeah, any chance you can get to be on a set and see how it operates is great. And you mentioned Jenna's book, which I love so much. I mentioned the book in my book. In the back, I put it in the references as one of the books that you have to read this book. Same with Michael Caine's book on film acting, is a very famous book by the same publisher as me, Applause. But these two perspectives, Jenna's is a very LA perspective, and Michael Caine, he's a movie star. So very few people get to have the experience on set that Michael Caine is having when he's telling these stories, although great information. So I felt like I wanted to write a book for a beginner, someone that walks on set for the first time, and what that experience is like, so they can be prepared, so they know who to ask questions to. They don't bother the director. And so that's where that chapter was kind of born out of, was, okay, who do I give my paperwork to? Like all of these things.
Down there, it's like, oh, now what do I do? Where do I go? Who do I not bother? Am I allowed to bother?
Yeah.
Right. Well, and that was a question I had for you. I want to get into speaking more specifically about your book. One of my questions was for about who your audience is. So here is the book, Up Close and Personal, and I will link to it down below. We've got the map, An Actor's Guide to On-Camera Acting by Stef Tovar. So you said your audience is beginners. What about people who are stuck? Because I feel like that's a crowd, a very big crowd of people who feel like, well, I've been doing this for a few years, but I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I think your self-tape section is like breakthrough in that regard. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that now it was happening before the pandemic, and now even more so. If you want to audition for anything, for a commercial, for TV, for film, for theater, for Broadway, you have to submit a self-tape. Gone are the days where a casting director is going to call in, 300 people for a first round audition. You have to be able to make a great self-tape. So, I know a lot of actors who've taken my on-camera intensive because they're good actors, who have extensive stage credits that get cast all the time in plays and musicals, but can't book a TV job. And it's because the language of this box and how you tell a story in this box is very different than auditioning in the room. People are bummed because they're like, man, I used to be able to win that audition in the room because I had the gift of gab. I could talk with the director. I could do these things. Well, now that doesn't exist anymore. You're going to win this audition and book this role solely on the merit of your self-tape, no matter what you're auditioning for. So it's just a very different world. So you find all these actors who have these great careers, are very talented, but can't break through anymore to TV and film because they're having to add a new component to their, to their resume. And that component is you have to be a director. Yeah. You have to direct this self-tape with a beginning, a middle, and an end. You have to understand how it's shot. You have to understand the arc of the storytelling. And that's just something we never had to do. We used to be able to let the camera go and just let it rip. And the director in the room will tell us, okay, make this adjustment, make that adjustment. But without that person, it's just very, very difficult.
That's so interesting. And that's one of my favorite nuggets of gold that I got from that initial workshop with you. Gosh, not a year ago, but at least 7 months ago, probably at this point. My, how time flies.
Yeah, crazy.
Was the being your own director and thinking about how does my little production read and watching it back and thinking about it. And I don't mean obsessing, because that can't possibly be healthy, but going in with a critical but maybe detached eye and saying, right, so I did my best in this moment and now I'm going to evaluate what I could do better next time. But something before I forget, one thing that came to mind when you were speaking about booking the room being a thing of the past, would you say that professionalism is not, and personality, are those not huge in being a successful actor? Not just your acting chops, but being a decent person to work with, right?
Yeah, oh, for sure. If you are a nightmare to work with, it will come back and bite you. And people talk, one thing that Marco said again was, being good to when you're in the makeup chair, hair and makeup, being good to those people. Because if you're a jerk to one person in that room, guess who's going to find out? The director. And then guess who they're going to tell? They're going to tell the producer, and you're not getting called into that show ever again. So, and then remember, these directors don't just work on one show. They'll direct for a lot of shows, and that word can spread quickly. So, just like in real life, it doesn't behoove you to be a jerk. Say please, say thank you, hang up your clothes. I put these things in the book for a reason, because I think people forget that, part of what makes you marketable is people go, oh man, I love working with that person. Oh, they are great. It's not just talent alone that keeps you working. It might get you one job, but if you blow it and you're a jerk on that job, you're not coming back.
Yeah. And yet, you see a lot of that. I've experienced, or witnessed rather, silently, a lot of extras, for example, complaining loudly about their costume, about trying to peek into the shot more. And I'm just like, I don't know what you're doing. Why are you doing that? Because it's not going to help them. And it seems like showing up on time, for example, it's like one of those things that you ought to know. So maybe we can say that another really good skill for success in this industry, or any industry for that matter, would be a healthy dose of self-reflection and self-awareness and consistent self-evaluation and reevaluation.
And just being grateful. There's a saying, I forget how it goes exactly, but it's like, if you want to give an actor a reason to complain, give him a job. And that happens more than it should. You got these working actors who are lucky to have these jobs, especially right now when the industry was completely shut down. And the complaining that takes place and the this, the that, it's like, you're lucky to be there, especially on a TV show. You're right. So lucky to have that job. You know how many people would kill to have that job? So act like it. Be appreciative, be prepared,
Absolutely. Well, and that led me back to being a professional person to work with, who's pleasant and friendly and just appropriate, I guess. Maybe somebody who can read the situation and know when to talk and when not to talk.
Yeah, sure.
If you don't have the audition room anymore, I guess if it's a live WebEx or
Like a virtual audition, a Zoom, yeah.
any of the virtual auditions, right? I guess to an extent you can speak a little bit, but there's like this barrier. Every time I do it, I always try and be friendly, but I'm like not super effusive, right? Because it comes off really big. Because remember, we're in this box, right?
Yeah.
I'm just curious, what's your take on booking the room through self-tapes and any tips you might have on networking in this brave new world that's super digital?
Yeah, I'm old, so there's that. But networking is, I just try to do good work and I try to treat people with respect and I try to champion other actors and other coaches and other, because it's a big pool and there's room for everybody. So that's how I network. I'll go see a show and I'll tell everybody I know about it. That's to me the networking that I do. And then what was the first part of your question again? I forgot.
I guess in terms of expressing yourself professionally, how do you show that you are pleasant and professional and just nice to work with if all you have is this tape? And
yeah, I mean, that's the thing.
A slate to say, hi, I'm so and so, and that's it.
That's it.
What do
you can't, you can't like show. You just got to be yourself. And I use what I call the acting dial when I work with actors. I'm like, okay, in this box, and if you were in the room, you could probably have the acting dial set to 10 being the highest, right? You could probably have it set to 6, but in this box, 6 looks like 12. So let's turn that acting dial down to like a 2. And it's the same thing. You can't be too effusive and gregarious in your slate. Remember, they just want to see a human. So just be yourself. Don't try too hard because they can smell it when you're trying too hard to book a job, especially when it comes to commercials where, if you try to sell the product, they're like, nope. But if you just be a human that uses the product, then great. So I'd say just don't show.
Yeah.
And I would remove the word show from your vocabulary if you are pursuing a career in theater.
That's really interesting. I think that's really good. I want to go back to the book specifically. It's called The Map. And you mentioned beats earlier, but why don't you explain where the title came from and maybe your elevator pitch of what your technique holds for us?
Sure. I've never thought of the elevator pitch, but I would say here's where it came from. So the map is twofold, right? Because this book is a map for actors who, from the minute you get your on-camera audition to once you're on set, it's a map to tell you how to do it and where to go. And, so that's where the first part of the map is. The second part is the actual technique I teach, which is the on-camera technique that I teach is all about finding moments in between the lines, because that's where you really win the job. Okay. I interviewed a lot of casting directors, agents. I said, what makes a great on-camera audition? And they said, authenticity. Well, what makes your audition authentic isn't saying the lines, because everybody says the same lines in the same order for every single tape. But what are you doing in between those lines is what makes it great. That's where we get to see your character process and think and make decisions, right? So what I do when I get an audition, here's a little example.
Oh, excellent.
Okay. You get the lines on the page like this, and I write out and I find beats. Okay. And I write and I put a little asterisk for the beats. And if you take a line and you just drew lines to the beats, it kind of looks like a map. So that's where the word map came from. It's a map of beats, moments that you want to nail in this audition that I think personally, and from the research I've done for casting directors and the thousands of self-tapes I've seen, those beats, those moments are the things that win you the job, not you saying the lines in order. Okay. So that's why I call it the map technique, because it's all about your map of beats.
Yeah, I love that. I love the visual. I think a lot of people are visual learners or blended learning styles, and anything we can do to add to that is is awesome in my book. Um, let's see, speaking of authenticity, that's something I wanted to ask about. Let's see, we're seeing a trend of greater inclusivity in the industry than ever before, right? And while we still have a long way to go, you know, the diversity spectrum is growing and growing and growing, and I hope we continue to see it grow with filmmakers and actors and crew people of color, female directors, queer directors and actors, just all over the place, normal, right?
Yeah, normalize it.
Diversity of bodies and ability as well. I was wondering if you would talk about your take on the industry's shape shifting towards more authentic inclusiveness and just representing the actual population that we have in this world.
Yeah, I mean, it's about time, right? I had a theater company for 10 years called Route 66 Theater Company. I was the artistic director and founder just by default. I wasn't very good at it. I made a lot of mistakes. But in 2019, in the fall, I decided to fold the company just because I didn't think Chicago needed another company led by a straight white guy, right? The best successes we ever had as a company were where we had women leading the charge. You know, Erica Weiss, Caitlin Parrish, who've now gone on to, television series and other great things. Those were our heydays. That's when we made the best work. And I think we're, finally arriving, but I also think we have a long way to go. As I start to audition for theaters now, I'm sort of dipping my toe back into the water and auditioning. I'm seeing the same things that they did before, making actors wait for over an hour and not being like, I'm so sorry, your time is important to us. Like little things like this that I thought would be shifting along with the inclusivity. And I feel like we're running into some of the same problems. So yes, when I'm coaching actors, women, people of color, I'm like, this is the time. Like, there's a lot of opportunity for you, finally. So audition for everything. Get your name out there because, you're going to be up for roles that, previously they wouldn't think to look for a person of color or a woman can play this or whatever. And those days are done, I think, which is awesome. Also, I love that, there's so much more content created by women and people of color, which is great. So I think it's a renaissance, but I also think that the theater community, especially these larger institutional theaters, need to step up their game and need to join the party because they're going to get left behind like the dinosaurs. So
interesting. So you think that TV and film are racing ahead with inclusivity and diversity, whereas the theaters are sticking to their really old roots?
I think some of the large institutionalized theaters are still clinging on like the dinosaurs. I think the smaller theaters are getting it and changing the guard. Okay. You look at GIFT Theater, Michael Patrick Thornton, who is one of the creators of that theater company and a star and a great guy and a great director and actor. He handed the reins over to 3 women. And they're now the artistic leaders of that theater. And 2 of them are women of color. And that's the way it should be. Why does an artistic director have to be one person, a white male, giving orders on high? No, why can't it be a collaboration? Steppenwolf's doing it. I mean, you have to turn the tide. And I think some of these larger institutionalized theaters are still clinging to that old model. And it's time to move on from it.
Definitely. I agree. So let's see then, some other questions I have. Let's see. One thing, I meet a lot of people in classes, Steph, that are no longer in their 20s, who think it's too late for them to begin acting. Is it ever too late to act?
No, never. I mean, if you got a passion for it and a skill for it, look at John Mahoney, who's, we've lost him. But John Mahoney from Frasier and a million other things, Moonstruck, you name it, he didn't even start acting till he was almost 40. So, and look at the career he had. So I don't think it's ever too late. As long as you have the time and space to dedicate some work to it, because it's work. you know? And if you got the time and space and energy to devote to it, go for it, I say.
And to keep going as well, right? Because
Yeah,
again,
because it's,
people give up, they move on.
and that's okay. Listen,
Oh,
I
it
have a
is.
lot of
It's
friends,
definitely okay.
especially now. It's okay to like, you know what? I'm going to not audition for a couple months. I'm just going to focus on X, Y, and Z. I think that makes you a better actor. You know, if, you
Probably.
know, it's always that weird thing when you go to an opening night and people are like, so what are you doing? What are you up to? And it's like, well, I'm, actually just living my life. I rode my bike across the country. I've been spending time with my son. I've been, writing. I've been doing, yeah, I'm not doing a show. Well, that doesn't mean I'm not an actor anymore. It just means that I'm pivoting, because a lot of us, especially during the pandemic, we've had to pivot, haven't we? And I think that's a good thing. Don't let anyone tell you that just because you're not in a show or you haven't booked something in, a year, that you're not an actor anymore, because that's just not the case.
And what about for very, very beginning actors who've barely done anything at all yet, who feel like they can't even tell friends and family, I'm an actor, or describe themselves that way? When are you an actor?
That's a great question. When are you an actor? I always say, well, if an actor falls in the woods, right? I mean, you need an audience of some kind, right? It can't just be like you and your cats at home. Although I'm sure they're a very good audience. You have to have an audience of some kind in order to be an actor, right? Because you're creating a piece of work for others to see and tell stories. It's about storytelling. So if you're telling a story to your cats, that's great, but that's not going to, make you an actor. I think you got to have an audience of some kind, but that can be at any level. It doesn't matter if it's a short film, if it's, if it's a TikTok. I mean, TikToks are short films, I don't watch them, but, that's a new medium where the good ones, the ones that get played over and over and over again, are short stories. So focus on being a storyteller and find an audience to watch that story and have a reason to tell it. And, that makes you an artist and an actor, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Do you have any final advice for beginning actors, especially, or anybody who feels stuck on where to go from here, wherever they're at?
Yeah, I mean, if you're just starting out in this business, there must be an actor that you admire. There must be someone that lit a spark in you and you said, man, I really love their work, or, I want to do what they're doing. That's what you do. You find an actor that you go, I want that career, and you like take the steps to put that out in the universe and make that happen for yourself. Now, it's if it's a ladder, right? Everyone's on a different rung of the ladder. You're not just going to be able to be on the bottom rung and see the top and shoot your way up to the top. You're going to have to figure out how to take steps to get there. But I would find someone that you admire, whose career you think that'd be a good fit for you, and then make a path to that goal.
I like that a lot. That brings to mind, for me, the Queen's Gambit over quarantine, right? I started dabbling in background work when I was living in Scotland. A few months before the pandemic. I needed a job, and somebody I knew was doing background and said, why don't you try it? So I did it a few times, and it was, the choppy nature of scene, cut, rolling, all the things, right? It didn't seem very creative to me at first. And then through doing it over the fall, it began to come together, and I realized, wow, this is amazing. This is like the perfectionist's dream in a sense.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic hit, and I thought, well, if I'm still interested when things open up again, I guess I'll see about it. And by that point, I was back in the States, and over quarantine, watching Queen's Gambit and watching Anya Taylor-Joy just steal my absolute complete heart. Yeah, I mean, idols, man. Is there anybody that for you, either presently or in the past, has stood out as somebody that you really looked up to in their career and their trajectory?
Oh, for sure. I mean, when I look at myself and, at the young time of my career, I looked at Mandy Patinkin, because here's a guy that was doing musical theater, which I love. He was doing plays, he was doing TV, movies. He's done it all. And that's the kind of actor that I've become, not the notoriety that he has. But I've found a way to do musicals still, to do plays, to be on TV, to do films. And also I teach, which I really love. Other actors that I love, Bryan Cranston comes to mind as one of the greats of our time right now. Daniel Day-Lewis, obviously. But when it comes to new stuff, because I love the Queen's Gambit, I had the same reaction during pandemic. I was like, oh my God, I ate it up and binged it. I'm really loving Sex Education, which is on Netflix.
Oh my
Laurie
God.
Nunn created this, and Ben Taylor's one of the directors for it. The cast, every single, I'm like, where did they find these people? They're amazing. And the way they tell these stories is just brilliant. And
So
gives
fresh.
me a lot of hope, right? It's very fresh and very, it's just a unique perspective. So I think there's a lot of really great content out there right now to inspire young folks to, carve out a path and go, I can do this. Because there's gone are the days where it was just ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox. If you wanted to get on TV, that was the only way. Now, you could create something on your own and pitch it and they'll produce it. And there's a million ways to get that done. So it's a lot of opportunity, which I think is exciting.
Yeah, well, and I was listening to a podcast called Audrey Helps Actors by an actor named Audrey Moore. And in this episode, it was like 60 something of 70 something total, I want to say. If anybody's
Wow.
interested, I would highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Very straightforward, very straightforward, all business, all really good actually on so many levels, from like the creative side to the business side to self-taping, everything.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that she mentioned in the most recent episode I was listening to was that she was betting that pilot season was not really much of a thing anymore. And it hadn't really occurred to me because I haven't really experienced a pilot season yet. So it hadn't really occurred to me that there never would be one, or that it would have changed in the last couple of years. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think there is a pilot season. Now, if you ask agents and casting directors, they will tell you something different, I'm sure. And they have much more insight than I do. But as an actor who auditions and as someone who tapes other people auditioning, especially in Chicago, where you've got year-round shows like Chicago Fire and Med and PD. So there's constantly roles to be had all year long. So I feel, and I think also because it's not just ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox. I think that, I think the days of a true pilot season, where it was like January till April, where that's the only time we're going to create new shows. And then those shows are going to get tested and some will make it and some will not. Most will not. I think those days are probably gone, which is great because that just means there's more work and more content and more opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a great time to get into it.
It really is.
Actor. And there's one thing you said earlier that I loved, which was that I don't remember quite how you worded it now, but essentially that there are projects for all of us. There are roles for all of us. And while it all, it's, everybody talks about what a saturated market it is and how many actors there are versus how many actual jobs there are, just endless rejection. Or if we don't want to think of it as rejection so much as just endless square pegs for round holes, maybe waiting for the right fit. I think that there's a right fit for everybody so long as we just keep going. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes that could be a long wait. I mean, and everyone experiences that, I haven't done a play in 2 years. Now that's because of the pandemic mainly, but also, we go through stretches where we work all the time. We go through stretches where we can't get a job to save our lives. That's part of the process. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And it's very easy to get frustrated. It's very easy to say, screw this business. And I get that. But at the same time, that's why I say, like, keep yourselves busy with other things other than just acting. If your whole focus is this business and you have no other life, you're going to be very frustrated. So, make sure you busy yourself with other stuff.
Well, and I suppose one way to look at the the famine, if we're speaking of jobs in terms of feast or famine, right?
Mhm.
Whenever there is a drought, if we were to visualize ourselves filling our cup with other things, if we're having a drought of some variety, all right, what skills can you work on? What experiences can you have to fill your cup up? And then boom, oh, you just went on a surfing holiday in Honolulu. I don't know, they probably surf in Honolulu. I've never been to Hawaii, I shouldn't say, but
I think they
you know,
do. I think it's safe to
like
say they do.
you've added this thing to your life resume, and all of a sudden there's an in with something surfing related, or I don't know, you know what I mean? Something where you divert your attention from focusing solely on auditioning and acting and oh my god, trying to book things, right, and having a fun life. And then I mean, you hear this again and again, lo and behold, the cool things you've been doing end up fitting into your next role, or maybe roles 4 years from now. Like Jenna Fisher worked in an office, and then she ended up, as Pam Beasley was her way in, working in an office. So it's just like, to have hope and take maybe a wider perspective and say it's okay, just live, right?
You got to have balance. I use that word all the time. You have
Yeah.
to have balance. You can't have too much of one thing. And yes, I think you're right. When you say, you know what, I'm going to take a vacation. I'm going to go away for 2 weeks. And as soon as you book that plane ticket, you'll book a job. Promise.
Yeah.
That's how this business works. So, don't just focus on one thing. Give yourself some balance and, do the best you can. Because it's a crazy business. And sometimes we get these auditions with less than 24 hours notice. You got to throw together these self-tapes. Like, we're all doing the best we can. Give yourself a break. And especially in this day and age, be good to yourself, be gentle, take care of your mental health. That's going to help you when it comes to when you get work, doing your best work, I think.
I would agree. One of my goals that going into this year is to finally get a daily, regular meditation practice going, even if it's 10 minutes a day, but to actually do it. So
Yeah.
that's my goal. Do you have a goal going into 2022?
Yeah, I want to keep writing. I really enjoyed writing the book. The publishing process was a little crazy, but I enjoy writing. I'm going to collaborate in 2022 with a playwright whose play I produced, and we're going to adapt that into a screenplay, which is going to be exciting.
Very cool.
I'm auditioning for more theater now, and I want to continue teaching and making that a priority. I'm doing my on-camera intensive again in January.
And how long is that?
What's that?
How long is that?
It's 4 weeks. It's a group class every week, which is great because you make these short films, these self-tapes, and we all watch them together. And then, you think you're nailing this moment or this is great. And we as a class go, okay, that worked. We missed the mark here. What you think these short films are saying or the stories that they're telling sometimes are very different. So the group class is key, but then you also get private coachings with me every single week and individual feedback. And we work on commercials, co-star, guest star. So it's a lot of fun. And I think the growth from week 1 to week 4 with students is awesome. So this would be my 6th time I've done it. So I'm doing that in January for 4 weeks. And I'm also teaching the on-camera class at Wright State University next semester. So
isn't that cool?
Yeah, I'll be there in person for the first week, depending on this Omicron variant. But then it'll all be virtual, because the thing about my teaching is, my goal is for you to be able to execute an amazing self-tape at home on your own, because that's what you're going to have to do for the rest of your acting life. So It doesn't benefit you to have me in the room with you. What we want to do is get you making a great self-tape, and we can do all of that virtually. So
that sounds awesome. And I'll definitely be signing up for an intensive at some point. I've loved the one-on-one Zoom sessions that we've done. We've worked on scenes and we've worked on commercial copy as well. But you also, for people who are based in Chicago, you work with people in person too, and you actually offer a taping service at your home studio, correct?
Yeah, this is my home studio. I got lights and stuff and a whole backdrop and everything set up, which is great. I just moved October 1st and got that all set up. And yeah, I tape actors' auditions. So, sometimes it's tough, especially when you've got like 3 or 4 scenes. It's a lot of copy. You don't want to have to worry about the setup and all that stuff. And being the director, you just want to be the actor. And I've been doing this for a very long time and know how to get the best performance out of people and make sure that their storytelling is clear in this self-tape box that they send to casting.
Well, you're very straightforward as well, which I always love. So thank you so much, Stef. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about or share before we get going?
No, I mean, I think you covered so many great things. No, I think we ran the gamut here, really. So thank you. It was a pleasure being interviewed by you. And I think this is a great thing that you're doing for actors. So, happy to be part of it and keep it up.
Thank you so much, Stef. I really appreciate it.
You got it. We'll talk soon, okay?
All right, Stef.
All right.
All right. I'll be linking everything down below. Thank you so much for joining us. Subscribe. There will be new interviews coming soon, new how-to videos, and some journal entries eventually if I ever post them. So thank you so much for watching.